Hi, I'm the Strenuous Objector, lawyer and overthinker of pop culture, and I'm here to take a look at your favorite movies and TV shows and ask the question, is that legal? Today, I'll be looking at a case that requires a little warning. If you've never seen Fight Club and want to avoid spoilers, please stop the video, go watch it first, and then come back. Now that everyone's been warned, I'd like to call the case of the state versus the narrator, or Jack's pending legal troubles, also known as Tyler Durden. Now, for all of those who ignored my warning, Fight Club is the story of an unnamed man who lives a materialistic life that he is completely miserable with.
Me, that condo was my life, okay? I loved every stick of furniture in that place. That was not just a bunch of stuff that got destroyed. It was me.
Until one day he meets a man named Tyler Durden, and the two of them have a parking lot fight, setting off a chain reaction that leads to an underground fight club, and then eventually domestic terrorism, extreme destruction of property, and a severe existential crisis. And if it isn't already clear, we're going to be breaking rules 1 and 2 today. But before I get too far, this video is not about Project Mayhem. It's pretty clear to anyone that the group's actions in the later part of the movie are illegal. Instead, today we'll be focusing on the beginning of the story and ask the question, is it legal to start or participate in a fight club? As always, this is not a review of the movie. I'm just deciding if what they did was legal. That's it. With that said, the first issue to tackle for this case is what state's case law and statutes to use. The movie never explicitly tells us where the movie takes place, but we do have some clues as to its location that can help us. First, a major point in the movie involves the destruction of the credit card company offices. Strange enough, many credit card companies and banks actually call Wilmington, Delaware home for their credit card departments due to friendly tax laws for banks and businesses. Second, when the narrator goes to call Tyler for the first time, you can see that the zip code for Paper Street on the business card is 19808, which happens to be the zip code for Wilmington, Delaware. Finally, the book by Chuck Palahniuk takes place in Wilmington, Delaware. So, looking at all of that, we'll be using Delaware statutes and cases for this discussion. Now, when it comes to physical fighting, assault or battery statutes tend to be the first place to look. While in Delaware, there are 2 relevant statutes for someone causing injuries to another. Delaware Code Annotative, Title 11, Section 611, assault in the 3rd degree, and Delaware Code Annotative, Title 11, Section 612, assault in the 2nd degree. Why mention both? Well, that'll become important in just a moment. First, though, we'll look at assault in the 3rd degree. That statute states that a person is guilty of assault in the 3rd degree when the person intentionally or recklessly causes physical injury to another. That clearly applies to any of the fights depicted in the movie. To counter that, though, there's also Delaware Code Annotated, Title 11, Section 452, titled Consent of Victim to Inflictions of Physical Injury as Defense, which states that in any prosecution for an offense involving or threatening physical injury, it is a defense that the victim consented to the infliction of physical injury of the kind done or threatened, provided that the physical injury done or threatened by the conduct consented to is not serious physical injury, or the physical injury done or threatened is a reasonably foreseeable hazard of joint participation in any concerted activity, athletic contest, or sport not prohibited by law. But let's just focus on subsection 1 for the moment, because any fights that resulted in injuries that the court would consider less than serious physical injury seem like they would be protected under this defense. But remember how I also said assault in the 2nd degree before? Well, that statute states someone commits assault in the 2nd degree when the person recklessly or intentionally causes serious physical injury to another person. And looking at the movie, we have a perfect example of a fight that resulted in serious physical injury. The fight with Angelface. And that fight isn't an isolated incident. Most likely, many more of the fights seen throughout the movie did or could have resulted in serious physical injury. And if it did result in serious physical injury, the one who caused the injuries wouldn't be able to claim consent as a defense to those injuries. To add to that, Potts v. State is a 2007 Supreme Court of Delaware case that talks about where the line between consent and serious physical injury is. In that case, Robert Potts was spreading rumors about Jane Ryder. She pushed him, and he apparently ran off to cry to his sister about it because Donna Potts, the defendant, came up to Ryder and challenged her to a fight. As they both walked down the street to have their one-on-one, a third party, friend of Potts, came from the side and knocked Ryder out. When she woke up, Potts had cut her hands, face, legs, and feet. The court found that while Ryder had consented to the fight, she had not consented to a 2-on-1 fight, or to being cut up or slashed. Comparing this to Fight Club, while all the fighters expected to get hurt fighting, maybe getting a black eye or losing a tooth, none of them went into any fight expecting to be hospitalized like Angel Face. Now you may be thinking, okay, if people just fight a little and the injuries aren't too bad, then it's all legal, right? Well, remember back when I said we were going to focus on subsection 1? That's because most likely subsection 2 is going to make all of the fighting illegal, regardless of consent. See, there's another statute that seems to fit the second subsection pretty well in relation to Fight Club. Delaware Code Annotated, Title 11, Section 1368 states that a person is guilty of the unauthorized participation in a boxing match, contest, or event if the person participates as a competitor in a boxing match, contest, or event in violation of Chapter 1 of Title 28. But that leads us to the question of what does the law consider a boxing match?
Well, as Section 1368 mentioned, we need to look in Chapter 1 of Title 28 of the Delaware Code to find that out. Under Section 102 of Title 28, we can see that boxing is defined as the act, activity, or sport of attack and defense in which a participant delivers blows with that participant's fists, especially according to rules requiring the use of boxing gloves and limiting legal blows to those striking above the waist and on the front or sides of the opponent. Now, that might sound like it only includes what we traditionally think of as boxing, but the word especially is really giving us a clear example of what boxing can be, not limiting it to only that type of boxing. Something you can take from this is that it includes any fighting involving your fists with rules, and generally the rules we think of with boxing are with gloves and limits on where an opponent can be hit, but those rules are not required to still be considered boxing.
Now, some of you may be thinking that Fight Club isn't what you think of for a contest or event because there's no prize for winning. But boxing itself doesn't need a prize. At its simplest level, it's an activity of attack and defense between two people using their fists, though it also usually has set rules. Fight Club has very specific rules, just like boxing.
The first rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club.
Specifically, rules about two fighters to a fight.
Fourth rule, only two guys to a fight.
One fight at a time.
Fifth rule, one fight at a time, fellas.
And even victory conditions for each fight that all seem consistent with the definitions of boxing.
Third rule of Fight Club, someone yells stop, goes limp, taps out. The fight is over.
Even the police in the movie label Fight Club illegal underground boxing clubs. So on the one hand, if the fight clubs are not unauthorized boxing matches, then all that would matter is whether the injuries from a fight were serious physical injuries. But on the other hand, if the fight clubs are unauthorized boxing matches, then every single fight as part of Fight Club would be illegal. Because remember, under subsection 2 of consent as a defense, it states that the physical injury done or threatened is a reasonably foreseeable hazard of joint participation in any concerted activity, athletic contest, or sport not prohibited by law. And thus, the defense would not apply because these types of matches are prohibited. Now, with all that said, anyone running one of the Fight Club franchises in Delaware could certainly seek to get a license from the Delaware Division of Professional Regulation in order to avoid any potential confusion about whether the fights are unauthorized or authorized. But I just feel that would kind of go against the spirit of Fight Club. But what if someone, like Angelface, wanted to sue for their injuries? Consent would be the best possible defense for any attacker. But even if Fight Club was an authorized boxing event, serious physical injuries would most likely not apply under consent as a defense, unless the court found those serious physical injuries were foreseeable. If the court didn't find them foreseeable, then of course anyone who received serious physical injuries could sue for damages. As a side question though, could Tyler get arrested for beating himself up? The simple answer, no. As you may have noticed in the assault statutes, both of them include the words another person, and the definition of boxing specifies an opponent. This, of course, ignores a discussion on whether Tyler should or would be committed for beating himself up. That's a whole different discussion.
In the end, though, after reviewing all the facts and the law, I find that in the case of the state versus Tyler Durden, the Fight Club would fall under the definition of Chapter 1 of Title 28, and thus all the fights would be illegal, at least under Delaware law. But remember, even if the court decided Fight Club was some type of authorized boxing match, any fights that ended in serious physical injuries would still be illegal, because consent only protects fights that result in less than serious physical injuries, or injuries that are foreseeable from a legal boxing match. This is also all assuming the Attorney General's office even wants to prosecute a case involving a Fight Club member. Same with any members actually suing. With all that said and done, I'm the Strenuous Objector, and court is adjourned.
Now if you liked the video and want to see more, hit subscribe or head to the comments and let me know what movie or TV show you want me to take a look at next. All case and statute citations are in the description. Also, all the information in the video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as actual legal advice. If you have a legal question or problem, please contact an attorney near you.